What is economics? Most people think of money, prices, or the stock market. But economics begins with something far simpler and far more fundamental. It begins with scarcity. Scarcity means that our wants are limitless, but our resources are not. Time, land, labor, capital, each is finite. Every choice we make as individuals or as nations means giving up something else. To choose one path is to sacrifice another. This is the essence of opportunity cost. Economics, at its heart, is a study of how we make these choices. It asks, what do we produce? How do we produce it? And for whom? These questions sound simple, but they shape the destiny of civilizations. Behind every policy, every price, every paycheck lies a set of choices under constraint. In ancient times, economics wasn't a separate science. It lived within philosophy and ethics. Aristotle wrote of household management, seeing wealth as a mean of virtuous life, not an end itself. Centuries later, thinkers like Adam Smith reimagined this moral inquiry as a science of human behavior, how self interest, guided by invisible patterns, could create our order out of chaos. From the markets of Athens to the factories of Manchester, economics evolved from moral reflection to a systematic study of production, trade, and growth. It became the language through which societies explain progress, inequality, and power. But at its root, the question remains unchanged. How do we best use what we have to secure what we want in a world that never offers enough? Economics does not promise easy answers. It offers a lens, a way to see choices, incentives, and consequences more clearly. And once you begin to look through this lens, you begin to see economics everywhere in the decisions we make each morning, in the policies that shape our nations, and in the struggle and aspirations that define the human story. In this series, we will explore that story from the elemental principles of supply and demand to the grand questions of development, justice, and power. Because understanding economics is not just about wealth, it's about understanding how the world works and how we might make it work better. Every society, no matter how rich or poor, must answer three fundamental questions. These questions lie at the core of economics, timeless, universal, and inescapable. First, what goods and services should be produced? Should we build highways or hospitals, weapons or schools? Every decision reflects our priorities, what we value most. Second, how should these goods be produced? Should we rely on human labor or automate with machines? Should we protect the environment or pursue faster growth? How we produce defines both our efficiency and our ethics. Third, for whom should they be produced? Who gets access? Who gets left out? And who decides what's fair? This question brings economics face to face with politics, power, and morality. Different systems answers these questions differently. In a market economy, choices are guided by prices and profit. In a planned economy, by government priorities, and mixed systems by a blend of private initiative and public control. There is no perfect system, only trade offs between freedoms, equity, and efficiency. And that word, trade off, leads us to one of the most important ideas in all of economics, opportunity cost. Every choice we make carries a hidden cost, the value of the next best alternative we give up. If you spend an hour studying, you lose an hour of rest. If a nation invests in military power, it may sacrifice education or healthcare. Scarcity forces us to choose, and choice inevitable brings cost. Opportunity cost teaches us humility, that nothing is truly free, and every benefit demands a sacrifice. It teaches us to look beyond the visible, to see not just what happens, but what might have happened instead. Economics, then, is not a science of money, it is a science of choices. It helps us uncover the invisible structure of decisions, the quiet logic beneath every headline and every human act. As we move forward, keep this idea close that every outcome we see in the world began as a choice among alternatives, and that understanding those choices is the first step to understanding the economy itself. At the heart of economics are three simple words: needs, wants, and resources. They appear ordinary, almost trivial, yet within them lies the foundation of every economic system ever built. And need as something essential for survival: food, water, shelter, clothing, safety. A want is different. It is what makes life comfortable, meaningful, or aspirational. Luxury, leisure, ambition, status. Our wants grow endlessly while our needs remain simple. And then come resources, the inputs that make everything else possible. Economists group them into three basic types: land, labor, and capital. Land represents all natural resources: minerals beneath the earth, forests, rivers, fertile soil, and the space we inhabit. Labor refers to human effort, the work, creativity, and skill that transform raw materials into value. Capital includes the tools, machines, and infrastructure that amplifies that effort. Everything humanity builds to produce more efficiently. Modern economists often add a fourth factor: entrepreneurship, the willingness to take risks, combine resources, and innovate. Without entrepreneurship, resources remain idle and ideas stay unrealized. These factors together form the backbone of production and how we create the goods and services that sustain life and drive progress. But remember, resources are always limited. No nation, no individual has enough to satisfy every desire. This tension between infinite wants and finite means define the problems of economics itself. Every decision we make, whether personal, corporate, or national, is shaped by this conflict between desire and restraint. We prioritize, we compromise, we choose again and again. Economics offers the framework to understand these choices, to think clearly about how to use what we have to create what we need and to pursue what we want without losing balance. The story of economics ultimately is a story of humanity learning to stretch the possible against the limits of the real. Economics did not begin in classrooms or data charts. It began in philosophy, in the earliest reflections on how human beings live together. Long before formal theories or mathematical models, economics was a branch of moral inquiry. In ancient Greece, thinkers like Aristotle and Plato asked what a good society should value. They spoke of household management, justice, and the proper use of wealth. For them, economics was not merely about producing more, but about living rightly within one's means. Centuries later, in medieval Europe and the Islamic world, scholars debated fairness in trade and morality of interest. Markets existed, but they were guided by ethics. Profit was acceptable only when balanced with virtue. Then came a great transformation. With the rise of commerce, exploration, and new technologies, Societies began to see wealth not as static, but as something that could grow. A new question emerged: what causes nations to prosper? In the 18th century, Adam Smith answered with a revolution in thought. In The Wealth of Nations, he argued that individuals pursuing their own self interest under conditions of freedom could unintentionally serve the common good. He described an invisible hand, a metaphor for the power of markets to coordinate human behavior without central control. Economics was reborn as a science, one that sought laws as precise as those of physics, expressing human behavior through logic and observation. After Smith came Ricardo, Malthus, and Mill, each adding new layers of understanding: the role of land, population, and trade in shaping prosperity. Later, the Industrial Revolution posed new questions. What happens when markets fail? When inequality rises? When workers have no power against capital? In the 20th century, economics matured again. John Maynard Keynes shifted focus from long term balance to short term crisis. He asked why economies can stagnate and how government intervention can restore demand and confidence. From this, modern macroeconomics was born. Then came monetarists, institutionalists, behavioral economists, each challenging the last, each reflecting a changing world. Economics evolved not as a straight line, but as a dialogue between freedom and control, between morality and efficiency, between human logic and human emotion. Today, in the 21st century, economics stands at another turning point: inequality, digital transformation, and climate change demands a new synthesis, an economics that is not only technical but ethical and global in vision. Understanding where these ideas came from helps us see that economics is not the static, it is a living conversation, still unfolding, and to grasp its future, we must first understand its past. Why study economics? For many, it seems abstract, a subject of charts, formulas, and distant debates. But economics is not just about theory, it is woven into the daily lives. Every morning, we make choices shaped by economics: what we buy, how much we save, which job we pursue, or even what we eat. All reflect the logic of scarcity and value. Economics explains why prices rise after a poor harvest, why some careers pay more than others, why technology changes the world faster than ever before. Look around and you see economic forces at work in the shops on every street, in the traffic of global trade, in the silent calculations that drive business and government. For policymakers, economics is even more essential. Decisions about taxes, welfare, education, and healthcare determine not just budgets, but the living experiences of millions. When leaders respond to inflation, unemployment, or crisis, the tools of economics guide their choices. Success or failure often turns on a single number: GDP, interest rate, unemployment figures, each a reflection of the deeper currents that shape society. Yet, economics is not just about governments and markets. It is about understanding the world as it is, the imagining how it might be improved. To study economics is to train the mind in clarity and skepticism. It means learning to think in terms of trade offs and incentives, to question easy answers, and to see the hidden patterns beneath surface appearances. Ultimately, economics is a way to make sense of complexity, a compass for navigating decisions. whether at home, in business, or as a member of global community. As this series unfolds, keep asking not only what economics teaches, but how it prepares us to act wisely and justly in a world full of choices. To think like an economist, we must master three fundamental ideas: scarcity, choices, and opportunity cost. They are simple words, but they carry the structure of all economic reasoning. First, scarcity. It means that our resources are limited, but our desires are not. No individual, no household, no nation has the power to produce everything it wants. Time, money, land, energy all exist in short supply. Scarcity forces us to decide. It is not the result of greed, it is the condition of existence itself. That leads us to the second idea: choice. Because resources are scarce, every action we take excludes others. Shall a government invest in defense or education? Shall a family buy a car or save for the future? Every path chosen means another path left behind. Choice defines our priorities. It reveals what we value most. And then comes the third: opportunity cost. It is the price of what we give up, not measured only in money, but in lost chances, experiences, and alternatives. If you spend an evening studying, the opportunity cost might be rest or leisure. If a country dedicates land to biofuel, it sacrifices food production or biodiversity. Opportunity cost reminds us that nothing is truly free. Every decision has a hidden shadow, an unseen cost that shapes the outcome. Together, these three concepts form the skeleton of economics. Scarcity creates tension, choice expresses intention, and opportunity cost measures consequence. To understand these forces is to see the quiet logic behind daily life. Why people work, why prices rise, why nations compete, and why progress always carries trade off. Every economic theory, every policy, and every market behavior traces back to these three words: scarcity, choice, and cost. Keep them in mind as we move forward, for they are the compass of all economic thought, guiding every decision in a world that cannot give us everything. Economics is often mistaken for a science of numbers, a field of graphs, equations, and forecasts. But at its core, economics is not about things, it is about people. It is a social science, the study of how humans behave, decide, and interact under the conditions of scarcity. It asks not only what we produce, but why we do it. Not only how markets move, but what motivates our choices. This human foundation makes economics both fascinating and complex. Unlike in physics, we cannot hold a human behavior constant. People change, they adapt, learn, and respond to expectations. Culture, emotions, and beliefs shape the way we make decisions. Rational calculation is only part of the story. That's why economics draws from psychology, history, and sociology. To understand demand, we must understand desire. To understand markets, we must understand trust. And to understand poverty, we must confront inequality and power. In this sense, economics is a mirror of society. It reflects our ambitions, our fears, and our values. Every price tag tells a story of effort and exchange. Every policy reveals what a society chooses to reward or neglect. But as a science, economics seeks patterns beneath this human complexity. It builds models, simplified version of reality. To understand cause and effect, It tests theories with evidence and observations. And though these models are never perfect, they help us make sense of an uncertain world. Economics stands at a crossroad between art and science, the logic of analysis married to the intuition of humanity. It demands numbers and empathy, precision and imagination, for beneath every dataset is a life, and behind every policy, a story. To understand economics, then, is to study ourselves, our choices, our ambitions, and the systems we build to meet them. And the deeper we look, the more we realize that economics is not just about wealth, it is about what we value. Economics operates on two great scales, the personal and the planetary, the individual and the collective. We call these two realms microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics begins at the smallest level, the choices made by a household, workers, and firms. It studies how people respond to incentives, how prices are decided in markets, and how resources are allocated between competing users. Every purchase, every wage, and every negotiation is a microeconomic decision. It asks what motivates consumers, how do producers balance cost and profit, how do markets find equilibrium, that fragile point where demand meets supply. Macroeconomics, on the other hand, steps back to see the wider picture, where the questions grow larger and more complex. What determines a nation's income? Why do economies grow or collapse? How do inflation, employment, and interest rates shape the rhythm of prosperity and crisis? Macroeconomics studies the orchestra of economy, where millions of individual actions combine to pattern. It looks for the harmony and the dissonance between private choices and public outcomes. Policies of governments and central banks are built on macroeconomic foundation. Through fiscal spending and monetary tools, they steer growth, manage inflation, and try to prevent recession. Macroeconomics is where theory meets power. The two sides, micro and macro, are inseparable. One focuses on detail, the other on design. Micro explains how markets function, while macro explains how the entire system breathes. Understanding both dimensions gives us a complete picture how small choices shape larger outcomes and how national decisions ripple through everyday lives. In the chapter ahead, we will move fluidly between two perspectives, seeing how individual behavior builds collective destiny and how national policy in turn reshapes personal choice. Economics, after all, is the study of those invisible threads that connect every worker to the wider world, every home to the hum of global trade. Every society faces the same problem, scarce resources and infinite wants, but each society answers it differently. The system it chooses to organize production and distribution defines its economy and shapes its destiny. An economic system is more than a method of exchange. It is a philosophy, a reflection of what a society believes about fairness, freedom, and power. Broadly, economists speak of three main systems: traditional, command, and market, and most nations combine elements of all three. In a traditional economy, custom and culture decide what is produced and how. Farming, inheritance, and rituals guide economic life. Production changes little from one generation to the next. Stability is valued more than innovation. In a command economy, the state takes control, the central role. Government plans what to produce, allocates resources, and sets prices. The goal is coordination, not competition. This system can mobilize quickly and often sacrifice efficiency and freedom. In a market economy, decisions are decentralized. Individuals and firms, driven by profit and guided by prices, decide what to make and what to buy. Here, choice and competition drive progress. But markets can be imperfect. They can create inequality, instability, and environmental cost. Most modern nations adopt a mixed economy, a balance between market dynamism and government oversight. Public policies protect social welfare, while private enterprise fuels innovation. The challenge lies in maintaining harmony between liberty and justice, efficiency and equity. Economic systems evolve with history. Feudalism gave way to capitalism, state planning rose and fell, and new forms, digital, decentralized, global, are emerging today. But beneath all transformation, the same question endures. How should a society organize its material life? By command or by consent? By tradition or by innovation? By collective need or private desire? The answer is never final. Every generation redefines its systems, searching for a better balance between human aspiration and human limitation. Every economic systems seek to answer one central question: what should success look like? Should it be measured by growth, by fairness, or by stability? The answer lies in three guiding principles that shape our economic policy: efficiency, equity, and stability. Efficiency means using resources in the best possible way, producing the maximum output from the minimum input. In an efficient economy, nothing is wasted. Every worker, every machine, every acre of land contributes its fullest potential. Efficiency rewards innovation, skill, and productivity, but on its own, it tells only part of the story. An economy can be efficient yet unjust. That brings us to equity, the idea of fairness in the distribution of wealth and opportunity. Equity is not about perfect equality, but about ensuring that everyone gets a fair chance to live with dignity. It asks who benefits from growth, who falls behind, and whether prosperity can coexist with compassion. Achieving equity often means making moral choices through taxation, welfare, and public investment. But these choices involve trade offs. Redistribution may weaken incentives, less may deepen inequality. Balancing equity and efficiency is one of the oldest dilemmas in economics. Then comes stability, the goal of keeping the economy steady and predictable. Booms and busts, inflation and unemployment can destroy confidence and wealth alike. A stable economy protects people from sudden shocks, allowing long term planning and sustainable growth. Stability does not mean stagnation, it means rhythm without chaos, progress without panic. No system can achieve all three goals perfectly. Every choice and policy leads toward one at the cost of the other. A free market may achieve efficiency but struggle with equity. A command system may ensure fairness but lose innovation. Perfect balance is an aspiration, a moving target shaped by values as much as by logic. The deeper lesson is that economics is not only technical, it is ethical. Behind every taxation law, trade policy, or welfare program is a debate about what society values most. Efficiency keeps us productive, equity keeps us humane, stability keeps us secure, and together they define